amazing day, brothers and sisters. Wish you all the best today. All the wishes that you have in mind, in your heart, are going to come true. Maybe not today. At some point they will. But think of something sacred. Think of something special and righteous, and it will come true. Today is that day. Thank you for tuning in to Saz Show here at the Glen Zone with my man Glenn Herring and a special guest, Andre Cadorette. Glenn, how you doing?
Very good, like always, champ. You know, if you're not happy or something is not good, we have the power just to change it. So when you have that in your mind all the time, you know, you wake up positive every day, and that's the way it's supposed to be done. Today we're going to go something a little bit different. We're going to be interviewing Andre to learn a little bit about what makes this man tick. He's sitting here right in front of me and is a fine specimen of a man. His wide shoulders, he looks very strong, very indicative of the way men used to be.
Thanks, guys.
Well, Andre is a producer of the new Whistleblower series, Sociocide, and he's going to talk a lot about that, and we're super interested about this. And, well, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I just want to attract people's attention towards this ongoing project I got going for whistleblowers. Anybody that's been witnessed throughout the past couple of years to what they perceive as injustice or just corruption, anything dealing with bureaucracy, any type of injustice that you feel like you suffered at the hands of the state or organizations as a whole, drop us a line. I'm sure Alex will be able to prop up the email address, sociocide@protonmail.com, and we'll be reaching out to you. And we got this ongoing concept going of, again, this could be done anonymously also. Majority of people that we've had are anonymous professional designations, people that witnessed things during the COVID time. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is getting some muckraking done on the Canadian side to try to change the echo chamber of the lack of news and the lack of information that seems to be in Canada and Quebec especially, versus our counterparts in the US, where stories that came out made a huge change over there and then initiated usually legal actions. And now we're getting the benefit of several judgments coming forward that are, you know, upholding the Constitution of the US. Canada, we're colonized here, so it's not really part of our population. We're very much sheeple. And in Quebec was the only demographic that was actually had curfews from January to May 2021, if I'm not mistaken. We had to be in bed by 8 o'clock at night, and we were told when we could circulate and whatnot. And I won't go too much into details about that, but as far as our basic fundamental rights and freedoms, they definitely were encroached. So you feel like you've been a victim of that, or you like to address some of that, I encourage people to divulge whatever kind of information they might want to bring forward, and we'll vet you and ensure you are who you say you are, and that will stay between us, and then we could present your story to the world.
So, Andre, it sounds like your one of your masculine traits are a seeker of the truth. Can you elaborate on how you got into wanting to learn about the truth? Like, well, you have most men, they're always distracted watching sports or something like that. What got into you, permeated your ability to be able to change direction into something that obviously has a much more meaning in life?
Yeah, the trajectory started young as far as questioning I wouldn't say the narrative at that time, but just society and its systems, and being forced within the government system. I realized early on something wasn't right. And I'm just going to give you guys the elevated version. I'll bore you guys with it. That led me to a lot of activism after I got a bit better control of myself and my emotions and discipline and addictions and whatnot. It led me to a lot of activism. I consider myself a leftist in my early 20s, like the majority of people, since we're kind of young and dumb and just want to change the world and think
Sorry
that we
to
can.
hear that. You are a leftist.
Yeah, I'd still consider myself a leftist. That they just pushed me right to the center from the beginning of this COVID. But since we get to identify with whatever we want, I still identify as a leftist. But at this point, I don't buy into the binary. I recognize the binary for what it is. And this whole left-right paradigm, we got to get out of it. And it's just there to cause the infighting. So yeah, my activism right away, socioeconomics was big for me. When I got into that, I got involved in different political parties and committees. There wasn't that many, and the internet is not what it is now. We're talking about mid 2000s. I joined forces with the Canadian Action Party, which at that time was led by Connie Fogel. Canadian Action Party, to give you guys a little backdrop, was founded by Paul Hellyer, the longest standing MP in Parliament. He was a Minister of Defense. He was a Minister of Transport. He was a Deputy Prime Minister, longest standing MP, got in there young and left late. He was always a Liberal, and then he went independent. And he was one of the first guys to put out literature on how the banking system works in Canada. A lot of literature was all for the United States as far as money mechanics, the Federal Reserve, and whatnot. So
he was also a whistleblower.
Well, that's later on in his life. I developed a friendship with the man, or I like to claim him as a friend, but he was just a mentor for me because in his literature, he's the first to tell Canadians that and after being a defense minister, told the Canadians that the biggest threat to Canada wasn't external, it was internal. It was the way that we were creating monetary policy and credit and not using the Bank of Canada to its, the reason why we nationalized it in 38 to 74 and what the benefits we got out of it. So long story short, Paul Hellyer founded this party, Canadian Action Party, 1997, put a couple $1 million in it. And what it did was attract all the people out of the woodwork, the people that were getting short end of the stick through government entities or other entities, and it was always attracting people that tried the official political parties and drew them towards us. So I joined towards the mid 2000, well, around 2007. I was voted in as a vice president on the national executive in 2008, and then that's when I became aware of different stuff happening in Canada from different people, that their lived experience, and I just couldn't believe it. And within Canadian Action Party, there was a great contributing factor. The intellectual might of that party that did the policy work was this committee out of Toronto, Committee on Monetary Economic Reform, called Commer, founded by Will Krem, that just passed away a couple of years back in his 90s. And socioeconomics always been my stuff. Monetary policy, how we create a dollar, and when people figure that out, it kind of lets us know who's really in control and how the system works, and the debt slave bondage, the creations of legal entities, double entry bookkeeping, and a bunch of other scams. That didn't end up too well for me when I started appropriating everybody's problems and issues. And at that time, I had no idea how to go about it for my own. So I wanted to address other people's. It was a lot easier to do than to acknowledge that I had work to do on my own. And I kind of gravitated away from these organizations, even though they're well-to-do, great people that I work with. At that time, I lost a lot of intellectual property because it always came out as a collective, because I was just so happy to find these people that thought like I thought and believed what I believed. And I was quite young at the time, and these people were all significantly older. And so later on, I still stayed in finance, accounting, and whatnot. I was an officer at Desjardins for a little while. I wanted to see why Desjardins was what it was. And again, I'm not going to bother going into that, but that's a story in and of itself. And then, early 30s, meditation, diet, body changing, relationships changing, life changing, just finding my way and recognizing that, we got to affect our change in ourselves first to see it outwardly. And that's been my process since then. And then finding complete sobriety in 2016 because I was allowed into a creative space. Never was into art before then, was always a corporate kind of guy and an intellectual kind of guy. And finding art and artists kind of healed me, people that collaborated, co-created. It was a tough pill to swallow because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to collaborate and co-create with other people. I was really bad at it. And but when I saw that I needed to work that, I let go of alcohol. That sent me into an introspective mode for several years. Everything I've done before then was alcohol fueled. My relationships, my friendships, my socializing, my jobs, everything I approached. And again, totally functional as an alcoholic, like the majority of citizens in our culture was. But so that just put me down into a long journey of healing and metamorphosizing my whole body, becoming aware of spirituality, alchemy, the power within, and the importance of self-responsibility, and just trying to tap into my ability to create my reality and create a life that I enjoy living and that I find beautiful. And it's kind of where I'm at now, and hence why I was plugging these new series that I'm working on. I got other personal projects that I'm dabbling into as far as government laws, applications, and software. But for the time being, it's Sociocide.
So the two things I pulled out of this is that you found a mentor at a time you were much younger, and you found a mentor at something that resonated within you. By the way, choosing your mentor is probably one of the most important decisions you'll ever make, is who you choose to surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with people who are winners, and you like that, okay, for your example, it was people who are continuous seekers of the truth, okay? They want to expose, let's say, the mainstream media Muppets and all the engineering of the indoctrination into the mind think of people. So that was one thing that you said was very, very important. You see, when the student is ready, then the teacher will appear, which has been said often. And that's what happened to you. The other thing is you were talking about having certain adversities in your life. But if you talk to any great man, any man worth his weight in gold, they've all been through adversity. That's one of the things that makes a man great, is to overcome, is to go over the wall, under the wall, around the wall, or if the wall is so great, he finds a way to go right through it. And that's another thing that I notice what you just saying right now. That's very, very important. And also, within that mindset, you could be a mentor to a lot of the younger men out there. Just like you were looking for a mentor. As you can see today, there's so many younger men who need mentors too. So we need for people like you to rise to the top, like the cream, okay? And we help to create tomorrow's leaders by doing it today. So with all those things in your life, it sounds like you're at a point where, I've thought about this many times too, is if I had to go through all the negative things in my life, go through all the trials and tribulations and the hardships and the resistance and the personal downs and the roller coaster ride, if I had to go through it all to get where I am now, to get to good, I would do the exact same thing. I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. At the time, it wasn't the case, but where I'm at now, I have such gratitude for what I lived and what I've been through, and definitely adds to my joy in life. Even the wrong decisions were the right decisions in hindsight. And again, wasn't the case at the time, and it didn't feel like it. But I think that's the beauty of life, is transmuting some of the heartaches and some of the difficult times, and finding a way into turning that lead into gold. And that for me is still an ongoing thing. And that's why self-actualization, self-realization, I believe, is the soul food at this point, and the pursuit of that, and the ability of knowing that we can affect change. And I think this whole system, this whole paradigm is made to make people feel infinitely small and like they can't contribute to change. Again, without shamelessly plugging Sociocide, courage is contagious. So these people that are sitting on certain informations or certain things, and they know it's dwelling on their conscience, there's a way into transforming that and making that work for you, and allowing people to feel good about certain things that they lived and that they could just therapeutically let go of, by allowing other people to benefit from their trials and tribulations. Sort of what you were saying about mentorship and whatnot, not to let those things go to waste. As far as for myself, I'm still in that process, and I'd like to at some point, affect change directly around me and with the people around me. In the meantime, my pursuit is just always for the truth. Again, these men that I got to have at different instances, Paul Hellyer, when he passed away, was the leader of the Disclosure Project, ahead of his time, talking about exopolitics, before exopolitics was even on anybody's radar. So that guy was going against the grain at a time where he didn't need to, he didn't have to. He already had his name set and his finances set, and instead he took all of that and he took chances, and he was a big man. And even for the youth today, like whatever shortcomings you think you might be having and whatnot, go find that mentorship. I'm at that point now where I'm grateful for the mentors I did have in person, and now the majority of them come in forms of authors. I'm a ferocious reader, so when I get into an author, usually it's because I'm crushing on them, and I'll go 6-7 books deep on the person and get to know about them, and I compare it to the early mentorships that I've had that I needed to feel in person. And at the end of the day, it's just that these men believed in me. You know, they're the first to say kind words to me, or let me know that I'm somebody. And especially, without sounding cheesy, altruism recognizes altruism. And I find this is kind of what's being preyed upon with the left, and kids not even aware they're being pushed into socialism, because obviously we want to help everybody. But at the end of the day, can you help yourself? Can you generate wealth for yourself? And that doesn't need to be monetarily. That just means do you wake up in the morning doing what you love to do? And can you continue doing that? And if so, then write a book. Stop putting it down. Who are these people that think they deserve to run our lives? Just by that, regardless of what they're preaching, just that they feel like they're allowed to push that down our throats. Write a book. I'll buy it. I'll read it. I don't need you to use these mechanisms as these party politics to impose change on people, from climate change to ideologies to everything else that we're dealing with today.
One of the things I noticed is you went through adversity. You learn nothing about a man's character during easy times. So his real character will be exposed during tougher times. And so we saw this going on, obviously, during the scamdemic. I saw it in the gym. You had, big, supposedly tough guys there, That's the way they acted, because it was an act. And then faced with the fear-mongering of a bad cold and taking the spikes and wearing this and staying at home, and you got to watch everybody. And it was replaying over and over like a bad song, in people's head. Then you saw that they were actually afraid. Their character was exposed. You see, men are allowed to be afraid. They're supposed to have fears too, but they move ahead in spite of their fears. So this is when you learn about yourself. And this is some of the things that I could see in front of you right now, that you're telling the viewers that's what you learned about yourself too. So one thing is very important is I'm curious about your future projects, because you're only in your early 40s and you look younger than that. So your best years are ahead.
Yeah,
now.
I appreciate that. I feel like I'm getting younger. It's kind of a beautiful thing, honestly. And taking control of that is kind of fun to witness. Well, just to make a little bridge, you're a man, you're in Montreal, and this thing's weighing on you, or you don't know where to look at as far as if you're feeling these dark thoughts. This paradigm is made for you to go through these kinds of emotions. Reach out. You can find me on social media, or that email address that you'll see. And that's part of my ongoing projects. So you're asking about the future and stuff. I see governance going somewhere else. I see law going somewhere else. I've been seeing it for over 10 years. And learning all about these systems, how they tangibly function on a day-to-day level with bureaucrats and statist culture. These are the stuff I want to affect. This is the stuff I want to play with. But it starts with an awareness change, a consciousness change in the populations. Hence why, for now, what I believe is getting people coming out, telling their stories, allowing us to witness a little bit of the seedy stuff that's been going on throughout this scamdemic. We want the contracts. We want to see what government notices and memos we're circulating. We already know they don't want us to show this stuff. There's a reason, but as a society, we should demand to know. In Canada, we're kind of screwed because we're colonized, and constitutional challenges, which I've done several of. They're a long, arduous process that drain resources and time, and they're aware that we don't have this, and they use our own money against us, and they weaponize the judicial against us. So my future projects is that the way I see it is they're doing such a horrible job with how they managed COVID, considering the technology that's available to us. I'm a big believer in these different currencies coming up that work for us and not so much the government, and sound money and the importance of sound money. Again, socioeconomics is my foundation. So I'm fully aware of what 1% increase in inflation does to the quality of life to single mothers and or impoverished people, the crime stats that are associated with inflation, just 1% inflation. And then what happens with austerity measures and what that is, what are austerity measures and how they work that. I bypassed it before, but when the crash happened in 2008, we're waiting for tokenly all the other things to start developing, and we only saw it here 2012 in Montreal as far as the student protests and how that was lively for a whole year. People out there with their casseroles and their pots and pans and whatnot, and being socially profiled by police. Anybody that had the red square, Montreal, Quebec, that means carrément en rouge, meaning you're totally broke. And then the irony of having these same public servants, which are always the second in line after the students to be hit by austerity measures. Then it was 2014. You saw that same red square on ambulances, fire trucks, and police cars. And the irony that they were literally beating on these kids a couple of years ago. And again, I was foaming at the mouth in 2008. I thought this was going to happen earlier. So it came in 2012. I got all excited. And then I thought what we're living now was happening then, because we knew that, they never changed what caused 2008. They only amplified it and made it worse. So we've been waiting for this crash. So the fact that they're covering it up with COVID and they're only putting gas on the fire as far as creating free money and giving out free money and making people dependent on government. And then mandates as far as decrees. Decrees are dictates from dictators. These are not legislative laws. They're not voted in. They're not debated and whatnot. I don't know where I was going with this, Glenn.
Did you say mandates?
Mandates. Yeah, well, the mandates is mandates. I got you. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but I do know a lot about decrees and the way that men are just disconnected from source. Men need to get back to natural law and just ask themselves, what is natural law? How does it govern me on a personal level from the hours I wake up to how I interact with my fellow men, where the Law Society does recognize natural law and how to flex natural law, especially in these COVID times where people just didn't know what to believe or what to do or how to go about it. We're waiting on these constitutional challenges that government and politicians have been happily interfering with and stopping from moving forward.
Yeah, several obligations to being a man. It should be like a ritual. You have to pass through it. To true manhood is to know about the laws and how they affect you, who's implementing the laws, and what's the agendas behind them. And also, you are talking about monetary policies, the financial system, economic system. It's in a man's interest to know everything about that, because they try and cloud it all up so that you really can't put the dots together to formulate a better picture for yourself on how to prepare for what's coming. For every man, they have to be a little bit proactive. A lot proactive. That's your responsibility as a man. That's one of the ways that you lead yourself. If you lead yourself, then you end up being attracting people who are like you too. Okay. And then if you meet a lovely lady and you decide to start a family, well, you're there to protect and provide and preside with this woman. That is your obligation as a man. If not, then what's the purpose of you being here? Basically, they say you're born, you reproduce, and you die. And in between all that is a man's life. It's the game of life. So you wake up every morning and you thank the Creator for allowing you to partake in this game of life. And you do everything you can to be the best player that you can in the game of life. That is your obligation.
Yeah, play with your alchemy, play with your epigenetics. You're in control of all of that, and that's going to give you your finished product. Discipline, rituals instead of routines. View yourself that special. You deserve that. So there's a way for you to prep for a day. There's a way for you to prep for every situation. Being a debt slave is not what you're here for. Your kids will feel that, and they might not feel it in you, but they will go towards freedom-loving men that are aware of this, that they know that it's their duty to find out about these systems that govern us and that rule our every life, that took advantage of our parents, that took advantage of all our other family members, that are don't be a victim of that, and don't play into that. This television programming, recognize it for what it is. Very optimistic with the younger generation. It's very stuff I hear coming out of some of them is stuff that I only came across in my mid-30s, early 40s. So it's pretty fun. Information's being shared. I myself like to synthesize a lot of what you consume is not just food. It's your surroundings, your relationships. It's what you read. There's no excuse not to read. Like you need to keep that brain working. You need to keep absorbing. You need to change your mind every 6 months, 8 months, depending on what you absorb or what you consume. Be aware of what you're consuming as far as food, diet. I'm huge on intermittent fasting, hydration, clean water. All these things are the people that are not aware of that.
Even entertainment, right? Music.
Well, music, and then let's just go to porn. That thing destroys your brain. Like it took so much. That was one of my toughest addictions. My last addictions overall are sex and food. But when I got a handle on porn, it's just these dopamine releases. It's the equivalency to scrolling on your phone. It's the same part of the brain. It's the same kind of usage or miles that you're putting on yourself, and it's all artificial. None of it, that's crazy statistics that in a lifetime a king used to see as much nudity as a 12-year-old boy does now in 15 minutes online. That changes. It's such a reward mechanism for men to force them into wanting to become something and be value added for a partner. And what's the need nowadays if you get to consume women and sex to the degree that a king used to in the past? Not that was right, but I'm just the comparison is just, we're just in different times now, and you got to get off the phone. You got to get off porn. You got to get off junk food. You got to get off alcohol. You got to get off cigarettes. You got to start doing breath work. Like my go-tos are a good diet, intermittent fasting, and breath work, meditation, self-reflection, reading, sun gazing. Get out there and get some sun. No sunscreen. Just basic stuff as far as guaranteeing that you're intact with your intuition. If you're not into esotericism, then go into hermeticism. Go get things outside of what you were conditioned to believe, because I can guarantee you is a lie. Everything is a lie. There's nothing that we know or we're programmed with that hasn't been purposely put there for us to fall for.
Is Earth flat or round?
I'll tell you. It's the irony is I'm taking pilot license courses right now, and I'll tell you that in a couple of months when I keep getting bird's eye view and I got the commands on my own. I want to go see Antarctica. I want to see for myself to see that question. Every religious doctrine has a firmament and has a flatter theory to it. I'm not sold on any of it. Again, like I said, I'll change my mind in 6 months when I've read something else. So at this point in time, consensus science got us in this situation, and we're so malleable to whatever that means. Consensus science, that's an oxymoron. It should be questioned. So the fact that they're just trying to censor more and more, and then the more that it's ridiculed, the more I think there's something to it. So at the end of the day, everything deserves to be looked into, especially pole migrations, solar weather, cycles, the Carrington event. We happened to be the place in 1989 where, if you look that up, there was a Quebec blackout. And that was one of the last times, and the irony again, it's here, where we had CMEs, coronal mass ejections, that affected our power grid. And we were out of power for 3/4 of a day or something. Don't quote me on that, but go check it out. 1989 Quebec power outage. And I love those theories as far as the mud floods, the resets, the biblical aspect of Noah's Ark, and that these fraternities that are in the know are preparing for something. They have been preparing for something, and COVID is just one of those things.
And I'm glad you brought it up, because brothers and sisters, you're going to ask like, oh, this guy is crazy. I'm going to stop listening to him right now. He mentioned flat earth. Well, first of all, I mentioned the flat earth, and since you're already tuning in, you know what you're tuning into. I am crazy 100%, but good crazy. I'm a good crazy because I'm questioning the narrative. And if you think, we'll be like, well, how would all the governments of the world, because US flies into space, China flies into space, and, Russia flies into space, and whatever all those space programs doing, do you think they all coordinated with each other and trying to hide this humongous secret from all the side? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. The last 3 years that happened, how did all the countries in the world coordinated this one mass event? Where even countries like Iran, for example, North Korea, and Russia, who are not clearly right now at this moment, who are clearly not a part of the Western think or Western ideology or Western synergy or whatever you want to call it, they also played by the same handbook. They took exact same steps into implementing the same lockdowns, to implementing the same, what do they call it, experimental treatments, and the the passports, all the elements that you observed and experienced here, they did there as well. How did they coordinate all of this?
Your audience knows this, Alex. I'm sure your average viewer knows this because they tune into you. And the irony that Lockstep is a real document, they don't know why we're batting 1,000. It's because, we read the books. Like, these guys all write the books. They tell you what they're going to do. These are it's a doctrine, Lockstep. Forget like, oh, what's this event 201? They know how to create the fabric of reality. So I'm pretty sure that your listeners are fully aware. Well, I like to think so, but for the new ones that aren't, there's no coincidence. This coincidence theorists versus the conspiracy theorists. Now it's done. Like I said, we're batting for 1,000, and because we could present to you their own writings, these fraternities, these people. You're talking about Flat Earth, von Braun from Operation Paperclip that brought the scientists over. One of the founders of NASA, if I'm not mistaken, on his tombstone refers to the firmament. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't know nothing. What do I know? I'm still in the process of learning. But at the end of the day, go see what these people were writing. Go see what they were talking about. Go see their allegiances. They don't hide it. They're proud of it. It's just that we got so lazy that we figured that we're entitled to information. Give me the programming, plug me in, and this is what it looks like today,
Yeah, it's the path of least resistance. Whatever is easiest, that's the way. Don't choose what you need to choose. Choose what you want to choose, and what usually people choose is whatever is easiest.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the weak man's choice. But brother Alex, obviously, we're gonna have Mr. Andre Cadorette on many other of our episodes, especially because he's given us so much that we can talk about. So if we had this show playing 24 hours a day, we could be going for a month and still not cover everything that we want to talk about. So I'm going to be looking forward to having Andre on the Man channel, because he exhibits all the qualities that is needed in men today. This is the example, and we're blessed to have Andre with us.
Well, guys, that's thanks, Glenn. G-Man, I appreciate that. It's nice to hear.
Yeah, and it's the Psalm 19:1 for the Van Braun, by the way. If you guys are interested, look into it yourself. It does mention firmament. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament show the handwork. Why would Van Braun, the father of NASA, the Nazi father of NASA, who was throwing V1s and V2s into London, successfully so, why would he mention that? Right? That opens it. But actually, I know we kind of just blew it over really, really quickly, and I'm glad that you mentioned the different side of Paul Hellyer that I know him for, and I think I was introduced to Paul Hellyer through his disclosure project, specifically Exopolitics. I guarantee you that 99.9% of Canadians do not know that, even though he's extremely public about it. You can, if you pull this up on any YouTube or just anywhere on the internet, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of videos will pop up.
Yeah, it's just like William Krem. I believe these two men, their last projects, as far as where they evolved their consciousness to and what they were passionate about, says a lot about their life's work and their presence. And Paul Hellyer, having been, again, the longest standing NP, because he got in there at such a young age and left at a later age, had so much networking done throughout those different ministries that he was responsible for within Canada, that he made, obviously, politicians, it's all about schmoozing and networking, and he made so many friends in statesmen in other governments, and then the consensus was in for him as far as that they obviously knew a lot more than they were telling the populations. And again, as a Minister of Defense, he was privy to a lot of information. So exopolitics, even past that, it's the treaties signed supposedly between governments and extraterrestrial beings. Some of them are less controversial than others. But again, his roster of statesmen is a who's who of political might, as far as how long they were in office, what they were able to witness, what they could attest to. And exopolitics is...
I have a little video. Do you guys want to watch that really quick?
Yeah, sure.
That there have been face-to-face meetings between United States officials and visitors from other star systems, period. No equivocation. And so with that assurance, and my own conviction based on what I already knew, I said, I'll go to the meeting. And at the meeting, I said that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. And that was it.
And it's been reported in a couple interviews that you've mentioned there's a federation of alien species. Do all of the alien species kind of work together, or is there warring species that war with each other?
Well, I only know about the Galactic Federation, and I don't know much about it, so I shouldn't talk about it. But they are concerned about what's going on in the world, and they have been working through individuals. They'll pick out a few individuals and visit them or talk to them telepathically or send information to them by channeling. I have a very close friend who was writing his second book right now with channeling from a species called the Basidas. Very few people have heard of it. They have a deal that they won't interfere. But I think that there's also a loophole if things get bad enough that they would make exceptions.
Yeah, Glenn.
I'm going to make a prediction right now live on the Saz Show. Two things. You, in the future, but I know it's going to happen, you're going to be a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience, and Jordan Peterson will have you on his show.
These are things I could strive for because obviously that's very flattering. Thanks, Glenn. But at the end of the day, I think that I'll work on producing and trying to contribute to maybe getting to that level of relevance. What these guys are doing are changing the landscape. So I can't say that what you're speaking of is.
We're gonna do it together, brother.
Yeah, well, that's it. You guys doing what you guys are doing. You guys are a house for the broken or a house for the awake. You know, you're attracting the people that just know something's up. And thanks for the kind words.
Welcome.
Thanks for the kind words.
Well, brothers and sisters, that's been a good show. And actually, we can go for hours and hours on here with Andre and Glenn having probably the most important discussion of our time. And that discussion is obviously revolves the state of things, revolving around the state of the man and what you need to pay attention to and what disciplines that you need to have beyond just going to the gym and having a diet. What is your spiritual? What is your mental? What is your philosophy? Right? So all those disciplines in mind here, you will be able to procure through different sources, specifically Man Channel, Glenn Zone, whatever the name of the channel officially will be shortly. And you definitely would need to follow people like Andre on his socials, and all of his information is right here. And also we'll post it obviously everywhere on our socials, including underneath in description in this video. And Andre is already been showing up here multiple times, and we're going to look forward to him every time he does because he has a lot to contribute and to share with our brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, thank you so much for tuning in. This was amazing as usual. Thank you for tuning in and supporting and sharing Saz Show, and we'll see you on the next one.